Hello students, welcome to Real Academy. My name is Yash Vase and today we are going to study a topic called as figures of speech. This topic is common topic for school as well as college section. That means this topic you would have in your syllabus during your 8th grade, during your 9th grade and during your 10th grade. Along with that, when you would be in college for 11th and 12th, you would have the same topic called as figures of speech. You have to keep in mind like this topic is something different from parts of speech. There are 8 parts of speech in English, and parts of speech is a topic which is included in the grammar part, whereas figure of speech is a topic which is included in the prose as well as poetry section. According to your board, this topic is included for poetry section, that is for poems. There would be a poem, line would be given to you, and you have to identify what would be the figure of speech of that particular line. Okay, so what is figure of speech? Let us try to understand. A figure of speech is a phrase or a word having different meanings than its literal meanings. It conveys meaning by identifying or comparing one thing to another, which has connotation or meaning familiar to the audience. Okay, in short, when you want to go for an event, what you do generally? You get ready, right? How you get ready? Generally, girls might be applying some sort of makeup. Boys, they have their grooming session. In the same way, why you do these things, right? You do such things just to beautify yourself, to look good, right? In the same way, in prose and poetry section, figure of speech, we have this topic to beautify English language. So we can beautify this language by using figures of speech. There is a specific format of writing answers in your figure of speech. What is the format? Now you have to keep one thing in mind, like you would have one question. Okay, you have to just write that question as it is, full stop. After writing question, you have to write answer. This answer word would be in the margin. Okay, then you have to write FOS. Yes, you can use shortcut. And what is FOS? That is figure of speech. You would be using this shortcut like FOS, put a dash or hyphen, and then you are going to write, for example, if it is alliteration, then you will write it is alliteration. Okay, then on the second line you are supposed to write explanation, like I'll explain this figure of speech, like why it is alliteration, or like something like letter S is repeated in this sentence, and my third line will be for poetic effect. So this is how you will be writing your answer. First FOS, alliteration, then you will be explaining. Now you might have question like, how would I explain? Like, I don't know how to explain it. Anyways, in every figure of speech, I would be providing you a meaning. Like, what is the meaning of that figure of speech? You can extract your explanation from the meaning itself. Okay, so here letter S is repeated in this sentence, for example, and third line will be for poetic effect. This third line will be common for all figures of speech. Everywhere you are going to use this common line. Mark distribution would be like alliteration, this will carry 1 mark. Your explanation will carry half mark, and for poetic effect, this would carry half mark. Anyways, that doesn't mean like if you're writing only for poetic effect, sir, would I get my half mark? No. If you are writing correct answer, then you would be getting this half and half, and it will become 2, that is your full mark for your figure of speech question. Now let us try to understand figures of speech. There are approximately 25 figures of speech according to your syllabus, and you need to understand the meaning of it along with examples so that you can identify it easily. You need to practice a lot of sentences, and if there are few weird figures of speech, then I would suggest you to make by heart it. Okay, so let us try to understand first figure of speech, that is called as simile. It is not smiley, my dear students, it is simile. Now what is simile? In simile, two ideas or things which have just one feature in common are compared directly by using as, like or so, especially like or as or like, which means when we compare two things, two objects, or if you are comparing two members, like people, if you are comparing this person with that person, or more than two such objects, things, or people, then that is called as simile. And in what way we are comparing? There is direct comparison. Now what is direct comparison? Direct comparison means we are using the terms like, as, or so. If we use the terms like, as, or so in the sentence, and if we are comparing two object, things, or people, then it is called as simile. Okay, then it is called as simile. Try to understand it with the examples. The kingfisher is as proud as the peacock. In this sentence, you can get it like kingfisher is compared to peacock by using the word as. Okay, if as word is used for comparison, that is called as direct comparison. Then it is called as simile. For example, let's take one random example like creeping like a snail, unwilling to school. So in this sentence, you can see this is sentence from All the Words a Stage by William Shakespeare. In this sentence, a schoolboy is compared to a snail by using the word like, and then it becomes simile. So you just read these examples, just you can pause the video, you can read these examples, try to understand it, get more such examples, practice, and you will become perfect in it. Now let us try to understand what is metaphor. There is similarity between simile and metaphor, but there is some difference also. What is metaphor? This is a meaning you can extract your explanation from this part. Like in metaphor, there is an indirect comparison. It is so important. There is indirect comparison between two things which have just one feature in common. It can also be called as implied simile. When two things, two or two objects or people or more than two are compared with each other in an indirect manner, which means there is comparison but without using the words such as like, as, or so, then it is called as metaphor. Understood? Let's take few examples and try to understand it. All the world is a stage. Now in this example, you can see again it is from the poem of William Shakespeare. He is comparing entire world to a stage. So is there like, as, so? Such words are used. Are these words are used? No, my dear students. We are not using such words. So it becomes metaphor. Time is money. When we say time is money, we are comparing time with money. Time money जैसा है. So here also what we are doing, we are comparing time with money but without the words such as like, as, or so. So it becomes indirect comparison, so it becomes metaphor. Okay, so read other examples also and try to understand it. And when the concept is clear, you become master in it. Next figure of speech is alliteration. Here, few students might commit mistake and I would let you know what is that mistake. Anyways, what is alliteration? It is repetition of the consonant sound in close proximity. You have to see the entire sentence. When you see an entire sentence, you can see there are few words in the sentences or a sentence. Okay, fine. Let's try to understand it. This is a sentence. There are few words, and if you see only the starting letter of each word, I'm saying starting letter of each word, then can you see letter S is repeated? Now if this letter S is repeated for two or more than two times, that is more than two times or two times, then it is called as alliteration. But you have to keep one thing in mind. There is a word called as consonant sound. This is important where most of the students commit mistake. In English, A, E, I, O, U are called as vowels and rest 21 letters are called as consonants. So what I mean to say is, if consonant is repeated, then it is alliteration. If vowel is repeated, then it is not an alliteration. If A, E, I, O, U such letters are repeated, then it is not alliteration. So you have to focus whether consonant is repeating or not. Okay, for example, let's take another example, and so he plays his part. Now you can see letter P is repeated here. Okay, then ask question like whether it is consonant or vowel. It is consonant and not vowel, right? So this becomes alliteration. Okay, so in a similar manner, there is one figure of speech called as repetition. Now most of the people write it as repetition, and it is not repetition, it's repetition. So you can see repetion. Now in repetition, words are repeated. In alliteration, letters are repeated. You have to keep this thing in mind. In alliteration, you have double L. In the spelling of alliteration, you have LL. So keep in mind, letter is repeated. And in repetition, words are repeated. Okay. For example, my name is Yash. My name is Yash. So this is a word, okay? And when I say, let's take an example, H. This is a letter, right? So letters are repeated alliteration and words are repeated repetition. Words are repeated in one line or sentence. For example, little lamb, how are you? So little or lamb word is used again and again, or two or more than two times. A no stir in the air, no stir in the water. Word stir is repeated, right? Then it becomes repetition. One thing you have to remember, that whenever there is repetition, there is alliteration also, but you will give preference to repetition. This thing you have to keep in mind. Like if it is repetition, write repetition only, and if it is not repetition, then go for alliteration. Okay, there are two figures of speech called as anaphora and refrain. Now I just want to tell you one thing, like about anaphora and refrain. You do not have these figures of speech in your syllabus for 8th, 9th and 10th grade, but you will have these figures of speech in your 11th and 12th grade. Okay, so 11th and 12th students, you have to focus on it, what is anaphora and what is refrain, and other students, you can just learn it for your knowledge, right? Anaphora. In anaphora, first line begins with same phrase of every stanza or same phrase on every line in one stanza. So what is given? What is anaphora? First line begins with same phrase of every stanza. If you can see, if you do not. So same phrase of every stanza, if you do not, or if in another stanza also, if some first line is repeated or same phrase on every line in one stanza. For example, I'll give this example. Here you can see, if you do not, if you do not, if you do not. If it is repeating in the same stanza, or if it is repeated in the first stanza and second stanza, if such phrases are repeated, then it is called as anaphora. What is refrain? Phrase repeated in the last line of stanza. If the last line is same, you start dying slowly, you start dying slowly. This is first stanza, this is second stanza. If last line is repeated in first stanza, last line, second stanza, last line, then it is called as refrain. You have to keep this thing in mind. Okay. Then we would move towards personification. Now what is personification? Personification gives human qualities to non-living things or ideas, which means personify. Person. For example, when we give human qualities to non-living things, यानी कि सिंपल भाषा में अगर ये कहे कि हम वो चीज़ें नॉन लिविंग थिंग्स को दे रहे हैं जो ह्यूमन बींग्स कर सकते हैं, लिविंग बींग्स कर सकते हैं, अगर हम ये कहते हैं कि नॉन लिविंग थिंग्स वो कर सकते हैं, ओके, then it becomes personification. So in simple words, if you are giving human qualities to non-living things, like whatever human beings can do, if we say in a sentence that non-living thing is doing it, then it is called as personification. It is so simple, and I'm trying to simplify it as much as it can be possible. So you can see examples here like the mountains sing together. How can a mountain sing? But can a human being sing? Yes, of course, human being can sing. So if we are giving such human quality to non-living thing, then it becomes a personification. In the same way, if I say, you are looking at the moon and the moon wink its eye. तुमने मून को देखा और मून ने आंख मारा. अब ये आंख मारने की जो क्वालिटी है ना, वो ह्यूमन बींग्स की है. ये ह्यूमन बींग्स होते हैं ना, ये आंख मार सकते हैं, पर क्या मून आंख मार सकता है? नो. सो इफ यू आर गिविंग ह्यूमन क्वालिटी टू नॉन लिविंग थिंग, देन इट बिकम्स personification. There are so many such examples. Like the opportunity was knocking at the door. How can an opportunity knock at the door? Human being can knock it, right? And then we have hyperbole. Hyperbole is a figure of speech where we say it is an exaggerated statement. So in hyperbole, the ideas or ideas are exaggerated for poetic effect. Exaggerated, if you're not getting this term or if you think it is difficult, then in your exam you can write it is an overstatement. Okay, so it is an overstatement. यानी कि बढ़ा चढ़ा के बोलना, कोई भी बात बढ़ा चढ़ा के बोलनी. Like sometimes parents have this habit, like, sorry to say, but they tell you like, I have told you this thing for 1,000 times. मैंने तुम्हें 1,000 बार ये बात कही है. Really? 1,000 बार? 1,000 times? No, they might be telling once, twice, or like 3 or 4 times, but they will tell 1,000 बार. Teachers even they have habit of saying like, if you have doubt, ask me for 1 time, twice, thrice, 5 times, 10 times, 100 times you can ask. Really? If you're going to ask for 100 times the same doubt, the teacher would be frustrated, right? So ये जो बातें हैं जो बढ़ा चढ़ा के बोलना है, इसको हाइपरबली कहते हैं. लेटर ओ इज साइलेंट, सो वी नेवर से इट एज हाइपरबोल और हाइपरबोले. इट इज कॉल्ड एज हाइपरबली इन इंग्लिश. सेकेंड थिंग, थिंग्स आर प्रैक्टिकली इम्पॉसिबल. जो भी चीज सेंटेंस में ऐसे लगी जो प्रैक्टिकली इम्पॉसिबल है, देन इट बिकम्स हाइपरबली. लेट्स गो टुवर्ड्स एन एग्जाम्पल. यू आर ब्राइटर देन द शाइनिएस्ट स्टार. तुम तो इतने चमक रहे हो कि तुम तो ब्राइटर हो शाइनिएस्ट स्टार से, यानी कि तुम तो सन से भी ब्राइट दिख रहे हो. दिस इज समथिंग लाइक फ्लैटरी यू कैन डू टू समवन एंड प्रैक्टिकली इम्पॉसिबल, राइट? सो बड़ा चढ़ा के बोलना. या शी वेप्ट एन ओशन ऑफ टीयर्स. वो इतना रोई कि पूरा ओशन हो गया टीयर्स से. Anyways, this is something comedy, this is something funny. Exaggerated है, बढ़ा चढ़ा के बोला गया, practically impossible है, then it is called as hyperbole. I hope so you have understood it well, right? So take care, thank you, and goodbye. Have a good time.